Hey guys, what's up? So, this is the part 2 of the class 11th NCERT, and uh, so here I am discussing the important points, and let's get started. First is the composition and structure of the atmosphere. So, composition of the atmosphere as given in table 8.1. This is important. Then you have greenhouse effect, then significance of water vapor and dust particles in atmosphere. Then when it comes to structure, you have to study different layers of atmosphere, their composition and significance, then variation of temperature with height, zones of separation of these layers, then practice the figure 8.1 very well. Then you have chapter 9 which deals with solar radiation, heat balance, temperature, etc. So that is like really important, and you have to understand the definition of insolation and aphelion, perihelion. So all this is important. So guys, it is like 3 a.m. here, so it's quite night here, so that's why my voice will not be that good. Now you will also have to study factors that cause variation in insolation. Very important. You have to study each factor very carefully, and you have to see reason for different colors in the sky and horizontal distribution of insolation, etc. उसके बाद understanding the process of conduction, convection, advection, terrestrial radiation, all this is again very important. Then heat budget of the earth, important concept. Then practice figure of 9.2, do practice it well. Then albedo value, latitudinal variation in net radiation balance as shown in the figure 9.3, so that is important. Then temperature, study the factors that control the atmospheric temperature, distribution of temperature like isotherms and their deviation in summers and winters in northern and southern hemisphere as shown in figure 9.4a, b and 9.5. Then inversion of temperature, very important for both prelims and mains. So understand the concepts of lapse rates, inversion, conditions which are necessary for inversion, its types, the most important, its consequences and significance. Then you have chapter 10, atmospheric circulation and weather systems. So it includes like atmospheric pressure, definition and measurement, vertical variation, horizontal distribution, patterns of isobars, ridges, troughs, pressure belts. Is सब important है. Then reasons for the formation of these belts are not given in this para, but at the end of the chapter you must know them. Okay. Then factors affecting the velocity and direction of the wind. So know the definition and interaction of four forces. तो यहाँ पे जो चार फोर्सेज हैं वो है प्रेशर ग्रेडियंट फोर्स, then you have frictional force, then you have Coriolis force and gravitational force. So Coriolis force here becomes very much important, so you must know the factors which affect it. Example, angle of latitude, velocity of wind, geostrophic wind which is there in figure 10.4. Then you have cyclonic and anticyclonic circulation, air convergence and divergence in figure 10.5, etc. Then try to remember the five factors given here that affect the atmospheric circulation. So read the next paragraph very carefully and understand the movements of easterlies. ITC said formation of three cells like Hadley, Farrell and Polar, and now you should know how the pressure belts are formed. Now in the box, effect of general atmospheric circulation on oceans has been given by explaining the ENSO and its climatic consequences, and it is very important. Then you have local winds, which is very important for both the prelims and mains. So try to study how these winds are formed and their names in different regions. Like some people, the land and sea breeze, cold breeze, hot breeze. So it depends, like Chinook, all these names are given. So उनको याद रखने की कोशिश करो. Then you have mountain, valley winds, anabatic and katabatic winds, etc. Then air masses, definition of air masses, basics of their classification and types. Then fronts. Front formation is very important. तो उसमें क्या आता है, डेफिनेशन, कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स एंड टाइप ऑफ फ्रंट्स. सो प्रैक्टिस फिगर 10.8. देन फ्रंट फॉर्मेशन, फ्रंटोजेनेसिस, सो दिस बिकम्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. उसके बाद एक्स्ट्रा ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लॉन्स होते हैं, उसमें फॉर्मेशन, फ्रंटोजेनेसिस, मूवमेंट, क्लाउड फॉर्मेशन, वेदर चेंजेस एसोसिएटेड विद द साइक्लॉन. उसके बाद प्रैक्टिस वगैरह 10.9 उसको देख लेना. एंड रिमेंबर द डिफरेंस बिटवीन एक्स्ट्रा ट्रॉपिकल एंड ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लॉन्स, तो ये पूछते हैं. देन ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लॉन्स, जो भी कंडीशंस रिक्वायर्ड फॉर फॉर्मेशन, डिफरेंट नेम्स इन वेरियस रीजन्स, उनका नेमिंग क्लासिफिकेशन कैसे होता है, नॉमेनक्लेचर क्या होता है. देन कॉम्पोनेंट्स ऑफ साइक्लॉन्स, इट इंक्लूड्स लाइक आई ऑफ द साइक्लॉन, आई वॉल ऑफ द साइक्लॉन, रेन बैंड्स, स्टॉर्म सर्जेस, एक्सेट्रा. फिर उसके बाद थंडर स्टॉर्म एंड टॉर्नेडोज. So understand the reasons and mechanism of formation and weathers associated with them. For chapter 11 water in the atmosphere, so humidity definition, type of humidity, absolute humidity, relative humidity, difference between them, role of temperature in affecting humidity, saturation and dew point. Then you have evaporation and condensation, उसमें latent heat of evaporation, factors affecting evaporation, saturation of air, conditions required for condensation, forms of condensation जैसे dew, uh, frost, fog, clouds, etc. And understand how they are formed and ideal conditions for their formation. Difference between fog, smog, mist, types of clouds and their characteristics. And precipitation, forms of precipitation, rainfall, snowfall, sleet, hail, and study their formation, especially of sleet and hail, and types of rainfall and their mechanism, convectional, orographic, and cyclonic, and get an idea of regions of high, moderate, and low rainfall around the world. So, guys, if you want to study geography, so Deepanshu is taking live classes on Unacademy Plus, and he will be covering it in much detail, which is required for prelims and mains of 2018, and he is one of our top educators. So I'll post the link of his live class in the description below, and you can click on it and you can enroll in the live class. And I would strongly recommend you, if you can do it, and if you don't want to go to Delhi and other coaching centers, then you can sit from your home, and 3 hours a week you can attend him. And he's a really a good educator, and you can check out his profile on an academy, Deepanshu Singh. And Jatin is already taking a live class on polity, and I am taking on science and tech. So, and Rahul will also be taking on current affairs. So do check out these classes, and I'll post the link in the description. Then you have chapter 12, world climate and climate change. So it talks about basis of classification of world climate, empirical, genetic and applied. Then Köppen's classification, which is the most important classification. So understand the basis of this classification, scheme of grouping and nomenclature, and letter code of different climates. Memorize the table 12.1 and 12.2. And for every group there are subtypes. Example, for tropical humid climate or A group, there are AF, AM, AW climates. So you need to remember them and take the help of school atlas and try to study the map of world climates. So climate change is hot topic of all the exams. So please understand all the in and outs of it. Note the historical and geological evidence of climate change, and evidence of last century like droughts, floods, crop failures, etc. Then causes of climate change, astronomical and terrestrial. Astronomical causes include sunspot activities, Milankovitch oscillations. These are important. Then global warming, again very important. So greenhouse effect and gases, their comparative strength, lifetime in the atmosphere, mode of occurrence, mechanism by which they heat up the atmosphere. Now try to get an idea about Kyoto Protocol, and finally the consequence of global warming. Then chapter 13 is water, that is oceans. So hydrological cycle. So understand and how the cycle works, and try to study the figure 13.1 and tables 13.1 and 13.2. And relief of the ocean floor, to know the relief of ocean floor, to understand various processes. Division of ocean floor into four regions: continental shelf, slope, abyssal plains and deeps. Then continental shelf, their characteristics, shelf break, economic significance like petroleum fishery. Then continental slope, minor relief features, mid-oceanic ridges. Then temperature of oceanic waters and salinity of ocean waters. So that is important. Uh, just a second. So that is important. Then chapter 14 is movement of ocean water. So waves, so try to understand how winds are generated and they propagate on water, and see the figure 14.1 as it is given to know the characteristics of waves like crest, trough, amplitude, etc. Then tides, it is the most important concept in this chapter, and know the difference between surges and tides, and major causes for the occurrence of the tides, that is centrifugal and gravitational forces. Now practice the figure 14.2 very well to show the tide formation and shape of continental shelves, tidal currents, different bases to classify tides, that is important, and aphelion, perihelion, apogee, perigee, and ebb and flow of tides, importance of tides for navigation, fishery, pollution control, energy. Then you have ocean currents, understand how the different primary forces like solar heat, wind, gravity, Coriolis force, etc., influence the movement of ocean water. Then types of ocean currents, very very important, cold versus warm, ये पूछते हैं. And significance of oceanic circulation and effects of ocean currents. So like in mains 2015 it was asked, explain the factors responsible for the origin of ocean currents, how do they influence regional climate, fishing and navigation. So अगर किसी ने NCERT पढ़ी होगी तो he can straight away answer this question. Then chapter 15 is life on the earth. So it deals about biosphere and its components, ecology, definition and origin of the term. Now concepts of habitat, ecological adaptation, ecosystem. So all this becomes really important. ये environment and ecology का भी portion cover करेगा. Then types of ecosystem, terrestrial and aquatic and their subtypes. Biomes, definition and major biomes of the world. Now try to memorize table 15.1 and it has a very good summary of various world biomes and their climatic and biotic characteristics. And structure and functions of ecosystems, like abiotic factors includes rainfall, temperature, sunlight, atmospheric humidity, soil conditions. Biotic factors include producers, consumers, decomposers, and their functions in the ecosystem. So these are very very important which you need to understand. Then study the figure 15.1, trophic levels, food chain and transfer and flow of energy in a food chain. Then food web, grazing versus detritus food chain, etc. Then biogeochemical cycle, understand the concept and significance of these cycles, that is the both gaseous and sedimentary cycles. Then water cycle is very simple and it is already discussed in earlier chapters. Then you have carbon cycle and oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle, and try to have a basic idea about other mineral cycle as well. Nitrogen fixation is very important and you have to understand that how does it happen in the without the help of एक तो होता है free living bacteria और एक होता है जो mutualism में रहता है. So try to understand both of them. Then ecological balance, so understand how this dynamic equilibrium is attained via competition and cooperation among the species. And a concept of succession, reason for disturbance in this balance. Then finally you have chapter 16, biodiversity and conservation. So it is important chapter for ecology, part of the GS syllabus as well. So it talks about concept of biodiversity, its evolution, 3 levels of biodiversity. 3 होते हैं यूजुअली, जेनेटिक होता है, एक स्पीसीज होता है, एक इकोसिस्टम लेवल पे होता है. Then importance of biodiversity, understand the ecological, economic and scientific role which is played by biodiversity. Then you have loss of biodiversity which focus on natural and anthropogenic reasons. Anthropogenic मतलब human induced reasons for biodiversity loss. Concept of exotic species, their roles and examples. IUCN classification of threatened species of plants and animals, उसमें endangered, red list वगैरह जो होती है, ठीक है. Vulnerable and rare. And conservation of biodiversity, 6 steps has been suggested here. It includes provisions of Wildlife Protection Act, mega diversity centers and their location around the world, biodiversity hotspots, definition, world distribution, etc. So guys, thank you. Okay, and so I'll talk about it, and do check out his class, and I have posted the link in the description. So thank you for watching this. Have an awesome day. Take care.